Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the TIMS Overview webinar. My name is Mike Fitch with the Ohio LTAP Center here at ODOT, and we appreciate your participation. As we get started, please take a moment to locate the questions box in the GoToWebinar panel. During the presentation today, please use the questions box to send in any questions you might have. Looking at the handout section of the GoToWebinar panel, please note also that a PDF copy of the TIMS user guide is available for reference. With that, we will go ahead and turn things over to Katie Robertson. Hello.
Hi, Mike. Thank you very much. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today to learn more about TIMS, our Transportation Information Mapping System. As Mike said, I'm Katie Robertson. I work for ODOT's Planning Division in the Office of Data Governance, and my main responsibility is to support this TIMS application. So hopefully I know my way around, and if you guys have any questions as we go through, you can add those to the chat pod and Mike will let me know. So there is a handout attached, and that is the user guide that you can follow along with as we go through today's presentation. I will generally follow the same order as the features are listed in the user guide. But mostly I'm just going to walk through the application and show some unique examples, something different than the last webinar. Sometimes we have folks that will attend multiple times. So here we are. You should see the TIMS homepage. And how to get here, we have a couple of options. So you can just type in the URL, gis.dot.state.oh.us/TIMS. That's a lot to remember, but you can bookmark it in your browser. You can also, from Google, you can search ODOT TIMS, and that should come up as the first result. And if you are an ODOT employee, there's a link at the top of the ODOT internal portal page. So when you come to the website, it will start here on the home page, and then the rest of the application is divided into pages. So we'll see a button for each of those pages here on the home page. We have project search, create a map, data download, standard PDF maps, map viewers, the data glossary, and crash data search, which we also refer to as the GCAT application. If you're interested in using GCAT, there are separate webinars, usually around the same time as we have a scheduled TIMS webinar. I believe they just had a GCAT webinar yesterday. And just some navigation around the site. Here in the bottom footer, there's some links that I like to note. The Help tab will, and that's right, usually I will right-click, open in another tab, but since I'm sharing this view, it might behave a little differently. So that is a link directly to this user guide, which is also attached as part of this webinar. So if you forget to save the attachment, you can still get it from the TIMS homepage. And the contact link provides this email address to the TIMS support team that will go to myself and a few other folks on my team. So if you have any questions about how to use the application, if you see any issues with data or any of the map layers, or would like to request something be added to the application, all those inquiries are welcome here, and one of us will reply back right away, usually within the same day. All right, so I can click the TIMS logo in the title bar to get me right back to the homepage. And you'll see on the other side of the title bar, we have this shortcut search by PID. And I could type it in, but you can see my browser remembers the last thing I saved. So if you know a project that you want to get the information for right away, you can just enter that PID into the shortcut search, And it will either bring you to this transportation search page if there are multiple records, which would indicate multiple locations associated to that project. If there's only one project record, if the project only has one record or one location, it will bring you directly to this project information page. And this page just takes all the attributes that we publish for a project and spreads them out across the page in a more readable format, categorizes the fields, and down at the bottom, it includes URLs to the project plans and project proposal. And as we go through today's webinar, I'm going to try to point out all the different places where you can find links like that to different systems managed around ODOT. Like this digital paper, it's managed by the Office of Contracts, but we try to provide as many links as we can so that TIMS can be your one-stop and make it easy to connect to different applications to get more information. So here, at Open Digital Paper, I can view the plan, and it will either open on this site or it will download a PDF. And you can see it's the full project plan details. From this project information page, there is the option to view in Ellis. So this is a public-facing version of Ellis called Ellis Proj. It does take it a minute to load, but you will see all the project details here. So if you're familiar with this system, you can navigate around and get even more information. From here, you could also view in map, but I'm not going to jump ahead to that yet. I'm going to go to the project search page and start from scratch. If you were first coming to the site, all of the filters should be empty, and you can see it's going to load. It still does have a filter, but yeah, it's going to load all of the records that we have in our database. So then we have some tools at the top of the screen to narrow down projects. You can view all the projects in a county. And of course, this database will include projects probably all the way back to 2001 when they implemented the Ellis application. But I guess this is also a good time to read the blurb at the top of the page that tries to explain what projects make it through to the TIMS application. So it depends on the funding category. That will include Ellis multi-lane or major rehab, STIP, major bridge, safety HSP, safety SRTS, local programs, and track. So those are the funding categories. It must have committed funding. It must have at least 50% committed funding to make it through to TIMS, and it must have a valid work location. And you can see in this example in the results table at the bottom, we have two records that don't have a valid work location. I have no route and I have no log points. It does come through in this view, in this tabular table view of projects, but without a location, we cannot map it. So if you try to view and map on this record, no features would be able to draw. That makes sense, right? You need a location to map. To use some more filter tools, let's look at, we are just about to turn over to fiscal year 2022. So let's see what's going on in Franklin County in 2022. You can see I have 116 records. I'm only viewing 5 at a time, but I can expand that up to 100 if I want to be able to scroll through 100 records. For the webinar today, I'll try to keep it at 5 so that it fits within the window that you guys can view. Here in this results table, you can navigate the table in a couple of different ways. You can sort the fields by clicking on the column header, so primary work category. or you could search, and this search box, think of it as a generic text search. So if we use the format of the route field, where it's 5 characters with leading zeros, then we could limit our results by route. We could view only the routes on, or only the projects with a location on Interstate Route 70. So we see we've got down to 12 project entries, and again, it can be one project with multiple locations. So we'll have the PID duplicated, but we'll see that the locations are different. Okay, so from here, we could, one more thing, for one individual record in the results, you can click this View Details button to get back to that project information page. And if you select the records, you want to click on each record one at a time. From here, you could export the data to a GIS format or an Excel. You could send it over to the map. But for today's webinar, we are going to skip over to the Create a Map page and start fresh. Let me take a look at my notes, make sure that I've covered everything I want to cover for this page. Yes. Okay, so we talked about if there's no location information, we cannot map it, right? Before we look at the map page, there are 2 ways that we can draw projects on the map. It can be a segment of the roadway, like in this example that I have selected. And so you can think of that as a line on the map, whereas this record above it, we have a begin log point, but no end log point. So you can think of that as a point on the map. And that different geometry is just the nature of a GIS database. So it will make sense once we do get over to the Create a Map page. So that's where we're going next. And a lot of times I'll try to step through all of these tools one by one and then, mix in the examples. But today I'm just going to do a brief overview, hovering over each tool so you can see the description, and then I'll kind of go through a work scenario that I've come up with. So in our toolbar of the left side pane, we will have the dark blue toolbar with all of our different options. Set visible layers, that's what we're seeing here. That's where you turn layers on and off, and you can view the legend. We have options for find locations. You can think of these as the zoom to tools. So you can enter an address, coordinates, a log point like we looked at with the project locations, or an area where you can pick from a list of counties or municipal areas, predefined boundaries. Then we have Identify Features tool. I like to call this the Inspect tool. So if you have a feature drawing on the map and you want to see more information about that individual feature, you can use this Identify tool. And then we have the tools, the tool menu on the toolbar, and it has some options for getting a little information from the map. You can measure a distance or an area. You can draw a graphic for a note. I'm not sure how much that is used. You can bookmark a specific location that you zoom to on a regular basis, because if you bookmark on the browser level, it will get you to Create a Map page, but it will load like a fresh page. So if you want to bookmark a location within the map, you could use this tool. ODOT PathWeb will take a look at this later, but you can click this tool, click anywhere in the map, and it will open the ODOT PathWeb application. And that is used by the pavement, what do they call it, pavement inspection group that drives the state in the path van. It has the cameras all around and the lasers for assessing the pavement. And then map channel, it works the same way. You select the tool and then click anywhere in the map, and it opens like a customized view of Google Maps where in one screen you can view, I'll just show you on this one because you can click anywhere. It doesn't have to be on a roadway. It has changed slightly since we first published this application, so for whatever reason now it doesn't directly load, but that's okay. Just one extra click, that view map. And here you can see it's the combination of all of those Google Map views, and you can navigate them all directly. So, if you are on a roadway, you can go along in your street view and you can see your little navigator moves along with you. So that's a handy reference tool. Okay, and then next on our toolbar, filter data. So you can think of these as the selection tools where you want to filter a full data set to just have a list. Say maybe I only want to view the culverts that are within Franklin County, right? I could filter that out and then I would have a list of just those. And then the final menu on the toolbar, add data to map. So if you have your own spreadsheets with coordinates or addresses or LRS events, that would be Nlf Id and log points, or if you have a spatial file like a shapefile or KMZ, you can upload those into TIMS and view them alongside all of our other layers. One thing to keep in mind about this add data tool is you would have to re-add data every time you visit TIMS, right? It's not going to save that. So once you would close down this page and reopen, you would have to re-add those layers. Some basic functionality on the page. You can kind of control your view area by expanding or hiding or resizing the panes. I will hide the results pane for now. And you can choose your base map. It should default to streets, or the ODOT base map is pretty similar, but you can choose from the different options. And once we're zoomed in closer, we'll take a look at these OSIP options. That is the Ohio Statewide Imagery Program managed by Ohio DIS OGRIP program. And they fly the state, I believe, on a 2-year cycle and collect aerial imagery. So we'll take a look at that. Obviously, aerial imagery will want to be zoomed in further. You can print from this page. The print tool is pretty basic. It will just print what you view in the map view, but it won't include a legend or a title. We'll see some more customized options for printing as we move through the pages and get to standard PDF maps. And then this final link, share map with your friends. If you click that, it will generate a customized link. And you'll see just from the format of the URL, it will remember what projects you have turned on, and it will remember the location that you're zoomed to. You can see those coordinate values there. So since we're zoomed out right now, I wouldn't do much good for me to show an example, but hopefully I'll remember to show you later. Okay. So we're back to our view. Let's zoom to an area. I'm going to pick county, and we're going to pick on Franklin today. So you'll see I picked that. It zooms to, if I did have my results pane open, if I click the find button, it would create a layer down here. Oh, maybe it doesn't. It's going to prove me wrong. You can hit the clear button to just get that highlight graphic off of the map. And now I'm going to jump down and expand the layers under the project category, because I was driving down 70 the other day and traffic was at a dead stop, and eventually we came to the orange barrels. I was just curious what's going on in that area. So I can zoom into an area and then turn on current projects. So this is going to take that full project database that we were searching on the project search page. It's going to look at the construction date, begin construction date, and end construction date. If today's current date falls in between those two, then it will be in this filtered current projects layer. And you'll see all of the project layers have both a points version and a lines version. And that is because of the difference in the location information. If we have 2 log points, we draw it as a segment along the roadway. If we only have 1 log point, we draw it as a point on the map. So once you've turned on any of your layers, you can get more information about an individual feature with the Identify Features tool. So you just click that to activate, and then you click over any of the features in the map. And this will show you all the same attributes that we saw on that project information page. And now instead of the full page layout, it's just listed. But you can scroll through, it's all the same attributes, including the links to the project plans. Okay. And at the top, you have a few options. So you could zoom to, and here I'm going to clear that little graphic that drew. Let's go back to our layers list. And, oh yeah, I meant to actually click that zoom to button. So now we are down to a much smaller view on the map, and we can get more information about this section of roadway. And for that, we would go back to our layers list, still looking at the layers within the project category. I'm going to turn off the current projects and turn on the full project's linear layer. So now you can imagine back on the project search page, if we had just filtered to Franklin County, and drew and sent everything to the map, we would see all of these PIDs stacked on top of each other because we have records going back to 2001. And again, we can use our Identify tool, click over the roadway, and now you'll see I have a lot more records. When I just had current projects turned on, my Identify tool only returned that one record. So we can see, and I guess, how far down do I have to go to see? Okay, so we can see some date values here. And I may not be able to fit it all on this one screen, but all of these records, they just return in any order, right? So they're not necessarily in order of the day of the years that the project was completed. Okay, so we have another option if we want to return a full list of projects. And again, I'm going to clear that graphic. Okay. With this layer still turned on, I'm going to go to another tool under the filters. I'm going to filter by a graphic. So for this, you're basically drawing your selection area on the screen. So you'll be able to pick from the layers you have turned on, the type of graphic you want to draw. I'm going to choose polygon. And then activate your tool by clicking the draw button. And then over the map, it will give you the crosshairs icon plus some instructions on what to do. So I can click around and then double click to complete. Now I have, I could expand this by adding a buffer. And when I click the search button, it will return all the projects that intersect that selection graphic. So down here, you can see my results table is now populated, and just with the same functionality that we saw with the results table on the project search page, only with all of the attributes this time. Again, it's all of the attributes that we saw in the identify results, right? But instead of now a list, it's in a tabular format. And once I have it in my results table, I can filter, I can sort by fiscal year. I can sort on any of the columns just by clicking that column header. I can search, say, I know a specific Nlf Id. Let's see, again, I have those links. Let's see what happens if I try to type in the Nlf Id. So I'm working with 70, that's a state jurisdiction, and I'm in Franklin County. Yeah, it's an interstate route. I think, am I missing something? Okay, I don't want to be too crazy here, so I'll just select this value. Basically, anything that you put in the search box, it's a generic text search. So you can see that it's limited down to 6 records that have this value. And it could be that value in any of these fields, but since we're looking at project name, we can see that it did filter there. Okay. I think I've covered everything. There's 3 different ways that you can get project information and some basic navigating around the results table in the map page. Now, once we've generated these results tables, if we go back over to our set visible layers, we'll see that we have this new category, results layers, and it is turned on. If we wanted to view only what we have filtered in the map, then we just turn off the main layer and we'll only be viewing our filter. So we don't have control over the symbols for these result layers, and we can't enable labels, but it will allow you to just view those records without all the other clutter. You can turn them off from the layer list. I do find though, as you're clicking around the page, if you think that you have removed them, they may show up again. So a lot of times if I get to this point, I may just, you can click the create a map page and start fresh. Of course, with the webinar, I'm clicking around a lot more than you probably would in a real life situation. So you shouldn't have to reset, but if you find yourself in that situation, that's just the quickest way. Okay. So we saw how to get some history for that section of roadway. Now we can get, let's look at how we can get information on the assets associated with that section of roadway. So I started to zoom in manually, but I also want to show you a way to use our zoom tools or find location tools. We used find area and we zoomed into Franklin County. Now I'm going to use find log point. I'm going to limit my routes to Franklin County and then pick the route that I want from the table. And then you'll see that it gives me the valid log points from for that route within the county. And the log points reset, if I'm looking at county log points, county LRS, it's going to reset at the county line. And starting, we use the term cardinal direction, so starting south and east, it will increase as you go west and north. So knowing that my project was close to the county line, I'm going to just choose 2. That's probably going to get us to the general area. And I can zoom out a little bit from there. Here's our county line. Hit clear to remove that flag. And now let's go back to our set visible layers. I'm just going to ignore that for now. And we're going to expand the assets category. Let's look at roadway information category first. So we've got a lot going on in here. Let's go through a few of them at least. We can view PCR pavement condition ratings, and you'll see we have symbology and some labels set up. We can see what that symbology represents by switching over to the Legend tab. So it's going to colorize by their pavement condition ratings. Let's take a look at the traffic count stations. And at the same time, we'll turn on traffic count segments. Again, you'll switch to the legend view to get an idea of what the symbols represent. So you can see in this area of the map, we're looking at short-term stations, and those might be road tubes that are put down along the road. And we don't see any permanent stations in this area, but they do all kinds of magic wizardry math to get these traffic counts throughout all the roadways in the state. And here the traffic count segments are symbolized by their AADT value, average annual daily traffic. Let's see if I zoom in, if that labels, yep. So we do have a lot of the layer symbology and label settings. Depending on that data set size, the layer itself might not draw at the full state zoom level, and it may not label until you're zoomed in quite far. So just something to keep in mind as you're navigating around TIMS. Let's take a look with our identify tool or inspection tool. I'm going to click on this segment of 70, and we saw in the legend, if you didn't see, the collar symbols represent, they categorize the AADT. And so this orange collar would be between 50 and 100,000, I believe, average annual daily traffic. So that's average annual number of vehicles that pass this roadway. And we can confirm that once we look at the attribute for that record. Here we have our AADT total, 68,830. And this is another example of a data set where we're able to link you directly to another system. Our traffic team manages all this data in an application called MS2, and you can link directly there by clicking on the link in the attribute table. If you are familiar with traffic data, you may already be familiar with this online application. And if you are not, if you have questions and aren't aware of the resources, again, you can always send an inquiry to that TIMS support email address, and we can forward you on to the right contacts. Okay. I usually just keep talking between my thoughts, but I am trying to reference back to my notes and stay a little focused for you guys today on this hot and sunny day. Okay. Let's see. Okay, traffic count. Yes. Now we are going to turn off traffic count, and if we look at a lot of the road inventory layers below. We should turn on the main road inventory layer. And then most of these below are filtered out portions of the road inventory. So you can view only segments that are part of the HPMS reporting system or part of the National Highway System. Only the routes that are federal aid eligible. Today we're just going to take a look at the main layer, the road inventory, and I'll use the identify button again. I do want to look at 70. Okay, so it's returned several records, and I can flip through those records and you'll see in the map it highlights the one that I'm currently looking at. So road inventory contains all of the attributes that we record for segments of the roadway, and you can see there are a lot of them. If I wanted to find a specific attribute, and scrolling, makes you kind of dizzy, there's a trick if you just use your browser tools for searching text. So I'm going to click Control F on my keyboard, and I can enter any text value there. See if I'm looking for roadway width, right? And then that's going to highlight all of the places where the text width occurs in my attribute field. So I can see it that we record width values for the median, for the lane, shoulders, surface width, roadway width would be all of those combined. So that's a good trick to remember. And I feel like I may have, yes, I want to make sure that I point out, here's the Nlf Id value that I was talking about. I was trying to come up with and type it out in that search box. And you'll see that the last digit or the last character is C, and that's for cardinal. It represents the direction that road travels, or that is digitized in our system. And so cardinal direction would be going towards east and north, so it's going this way. But for our interstates, with the divided highways, there will also be a non-cardinal. A lot of times you'll find that the non-cardinal record will not have as many attributes, so that's something to keep in mind to understand which side of the roadway that you're looking at. Okay, let's turn that one off. See, another layer worth highlighting is straight line diagrams. Again, I'm going to use my Identify Features tool. And this data set exists strictly to give you a shortcut to the straight line diagrams. So in your attributes, you will see another hyperlink, and that will get you directly to the PDF for that section of roadway. Okay, I'll turn that one off. And now let's jump up and take a look at the assets. We have a lot of layers under assets, some reference layers like aviation facilities, the ODOT facilities, and then we have very large data sets like conduits and bridges. We have all of the assets that are collected or inventoried and inspected through our collector program, which a lot of you might be familiar with. So things like outfalls and highway lighting, safety barriers, under drain outlets, signs and their supports. I didn't want to skip over some geotechnical engineering layers for hole locations and projects specific to geotech. Yeah, I think that's enough to note. If you have any questions on individual data sets, feel free to add that to the chat pod. Okay, we're going to look at conduits and Bridges. I'm going to turn both of those on. It's a lot of data. So let's go through some ways of narrowing down through the map to the information that we are interested in. Again, I'm using that identify tool. I'm going to just click over this area. You'll see within that selection box, it returned 2 culverts. A lot of our assets that are part of the collector program and culverts included, it will have links to images that were collected in the field. You'll see that we've passed a couple of hyperlinks, inspection photos and inventory photos. And I can tell you that these links are automatically generated, whether there's an attachment or not. But now with our collector assets, we are trying to add smarter fields. So we only include a URL if an attachment exists. So you can see there are none, and those fields will always be named the same. Image, attach, INB for inventory, INSP for inspection. I do believe we have some images for these culverts inventoried on, on Broad Street. So I can show you how that will look. Okay. Okay, so with a data set like this that has so many attributes, again, you can use that trick, Control F, and you can search attachments to help you find those fields. So you can see there. Okay. Now, let's turn off conduits and see what we can do with all of these bridges drawing in the area. Okay, we can say we only want to view the bridges that are along 70. We want to turn off all this other clutter in the map. So we're again going to use our filter data tools, but this time we are going to filter by attribute. So you should be familiar with what I'm referring to when I say attributes now. It's all of those values, all of those fields or columns of information that we store in the table associated to the feature. So again, you'll be able to pick from all the layers that you currently have turned on, and then you're going to build a basic filter. So I want to filter this by the route, and maybe the best way to do that is to filter by the Nlf Id. So I can start typing to filter that field, to filter to that field name. And here, even though I might not be able to come up with the full 14-character Nlf Id, I can narrow it down again just using that type to filter. So we're at state, we're in Franklin, interstate route, and we want 70 and the cardinal route. Now, hopefully, you should expect what's going to happen when I perform this filter. It has selected my records, and you can see it's completely within Franklin all along Route 70. I can go back to my layers list. It has generated a new results layer. And while it won't have a customized name, it will tell you how that selection list was derived. So it was derived using the filter by attributes tool. If I only want to view those selected records, I turn off the main record. And I will have the attributes for all the selected features in my results table. Of course, once you're in the results table, you can sort on any field just by clicking the column name. You can say I wanted to export a list of these bridges, but I didn't want all of this information in my Excel file, you can choose which fields. I toggled them all off, and there are a lot of attributes. You could individually just click the check marks. Don't crash. We'll wait. It'll be all right. So the fields that you chose here in this view would be reflected by the columns that you viewed here in this table, and represented if I did an export to a CSV. That's what you would view in your spreadsheet. Okay. We are just going to start fresh, like I said before. All right, so we're back to our create a map page, and we can zoom back into that same area. Let's see if there's a way that we have not yet done that. I don't know a nearby address, but it's going to default you to the address of central office, ODOT central office in Columbus, just so it gives you an example of the format that it expects. So I click find. You know, I know that's going to get me pretty close. I'm in 70, I'm in Franklin, and this is the area that I'm interested in. So another way to use the find location tools or zoom to tools. This would be a good example also where I would want to create a bookmark for this area. Okay, so we took a look at the layers under roadway inventory, some of the layers available under assets. Let's make sure we get an overview of the other categories. Under boundaries, we have the reference polygons, city, township, county, some telephone service areas, electric service areas, school districts, sections, lots, tracks. I believe that is, you know what, let's take a look. Let's turn it on. I believe it's parcels. I'll show you as we move through the pages how we can get information on one particular data set once we get to the data glossary. Under environmental, you'll have a lot of options. These are all features that are managed by the Office of Environmental Services. So there's some maintenance restrictions on different sections of roadway. And noise wall inventory is managed by environmental. Some ecological region boundaries, muscle stream information, stone culverts, I believe, are a protected asset. You see them drawing in light blue there. And finally, under safety, we have some crash information. It's a subset of what is available through the GCAT application. We only show 3 previous years. Soon this will be updated to include 2020. Maybe because everything was so strange with the pandemic, I believe that they skipped a year of publishing because the numbers were just so different. But usually every year it would be updated with the most recent year, and we would drop the most previous year. I'll give you a quick view. It's not nearly as many attributes as you would get in GCAT. It's really pared down to make it just a quick reference layer. Okay, so that's a brief overview of all of the legends, and we've hit on a lot of the tools in the toolbar. Let's say you have a list of bridges already. We went through an example of generating a list of bridges by selecting them from the map. Say you already have a list of bridges and you want to view those on the map. Well, if you have location information included in that list, say you have a spreadsheet that will include Nlf Id and log point or some coordinates, then we can add those into TIMS and view them alongside all the other attributes. So we're using our Add Data tool menu, and we're going to choose LRS Events. I'm going to navigate to I'm not sure if you can see that in my screen share, but it's just opening a browser window. And I'm going to navigate to my list. You'll see it's picked the list. Now I upload it. And you'll get this notification that if you're trying to upload a very large list, because it's a public-facing web application, it is geared towards more, maybe the limit is 5,000. You might have some issues, but this file will have 100 and some, I think, so it should be fairly quick. Now I know my list of bridges is going to be a point event because I have an Nlf Id and I have one log point. We're going to use the county LRS. If you click add, it will generate that layer. See, I have 138 records, in my results. And this is, I think, a list of bridges I sorted by, only include a subset of the general appraisal. But whatever your list is, as long as and it doesn't have to be our assets either. It's anything that you have an Nlf Id and log point or an XY coordinate, or a list of addresses you can geocode. If you have latitude and longitudes, but you need to return their address, you can use our reverse geocode tool. Those are a little more advanced that I don't know if a lot of our basic TIMS users are going to use, so I won't spend too much time on those. But again, what are you going to do if you want more information? Well, here you can drop a question in the chat pod, or you can email the TIMS support team. Okay. If there aren't any questions specific to this Create a Map page, then I would like to, oh my gosh, it's 2:52. So yes, we need to do an overview of the final pages. So we have the data download page. Here you can find all of the layers that are listed in the Create a Map layers list, right? You can download the full data set. It's already pre-packaged, so it will be fast. You can get it as a zipped up geodatabase or Excel file or shapefile. Standard PDF maps, we have some pre-configured map templates that will go beyond just the basic thing that you can print. I have a couple of examples already ready, so we don't have to wait for those. It will take a minute to generate once you choose your size and your area of interest. So I have just a couple of examples. You can do your AADT map, you can view milepost, fiscal year projects, project season, or construction season. So hopefully you'll get an example. And if you're interested in that, you can play around with the different options. We'll get back to this view in just a second. Under map viewers, you'll see a lot of different pages, links to different pages, but these are all basically, the functionality is the same as Create a Map, but we've just customized the layers that are available. For a quick reference, the structures viewer, so instead of just turning on all of the bridges as one large data set and one symbol, they're broken out. Again, large data sets, so you may need to zoom in. So they're broken out by filtering that data set and creating individual layers. And you can play around with those. And of course, if you want to know what the symbols represent, you would switch over to your Legend tab. There's specific layers just for bridges that are rated poor condition by the NBIS standards. And then we have just the same list of road inventory and boundaries. So you're welcome to, these are all public facing, so you're welcome to play around and navigate those. Okay, our final page, the Data Glossary. This is like the metadata page. You can view a description for all of our data sets and get a list of all of their attribute fields with a description of the attributes. So you want to narrow it down to one attribute. And again, you can type to filter. Let's take a look at bridges. We have 204 attributes that are recorded for the bridge data set. If we want to get a description of the overall data set, you'll just hover over any of these question mark icons to the left, and you'll see a description of the data set and the date that it was last refreshed. So a lot of our data sets are updated daily, and you should see that represented here. You can export all of these fields or sort again just by clicking on the column name. And again, there's a search tool to help you narrow down if you're looking for something specific. So let's see, if I'm looking for inspection frequency, you'll see that I have 4 fields that relate to that: designated inspection, fraction, critical inspection, and etc. Just for one more example, and I'll wrap it up today. Make sure you guys get out on time. We looked at culverts a lot, conduits. You'll see it still has my search text, so I'm going to remove that. I've got 112 attributes. I can get the description. That's pretty basic, but each field will have a description for that as well. Okay, so with that, I'm going to take us back to this contact page, give you one more chance just to note that you can access that email address. You don't have to remember it. You can get it from the TIMS site at any time. And the same for the user guide, that is under the Help tab. And I ran out of time, but I do want you guys to know that most of the functionality will also be available from your mobile devices, kind of a pared down version of the application, but you can zoom to your current location with GPS, and you can still turn layers on and off and search projects. And it includes the customized map viewers as well. Okay, so if Mike is still there, if he has anything.
Yes.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Katie. Thanks so much. Great information, great examples. We did receive a few questions, so
Okay.
maybe we can look at some of these, and you might have touched on some of these items already. First question, if we don't know the name of a project, but want to know all historical and existing projects that were planned in our MPO, can we get a GIS-based database?
Yeah, so if you want all the projects within your MPO, you can use our filter tools. And again, you would have to do it for both points and lines, but if you're looking for GIS database, then you should already understand why it has to be split that way. But you would turn on the layer so that I don't want it to freeze up zoomed out that far. And then you could use the filter tools. Filter by geography is going to let you pick from those areas of interest, and that will include MPO. So say it's the Akron area MPO. Then when you searched, again, this is all projects, we'll go back to 2001. You could export. I believe that there is a limit to the number of records that will be returned here, either 1,000 or 5,000. So if your search is over the limit, for a one-off request, you would be welcome to just contact the TIMS support team, and we could generate that, zip it up, and send it over. Or if you're comfortable with GIS, you can get the full project database downloaded from our data download page, and then filter yourself on your end. Hopefully that will answer your question.
Thanks, Katie. Maybe one more question here. For planning purposes, can we get a summarized unit cost information based on the historical construction costs by street?
Wow, I think that level of information may be over my head, but so I definitely encourage whoever asked that question to send me an email through that TIMS support email. Um, because if there's not a way to do it through the TIMS search, then I could get help from our Ellis project data team to figure out the best, most efficient way to search that through Ellis, either Ellis if you're internal or the Ellis Proj system if you're external.
All right. Well, we have reached 3 p.m. So I want to thank Katie for presenting today. We really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for your participation.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good day, everyone.
You too. Bye.